if you are planning to run a business on your WordPress website, if that is going to be your means of earning an income or, promoting yourself so you can earn an income, then you definitely want to make sure that your site is built as well as it can be, is designed as well as it can be,
Yes.
is managed as well as it can be, is secured as well as it can be.
Yes,
And
definitely.
so, at that point, that's when you seriously, once you intend for your website to contribute to your income earning potential, whether you're an individual or a business, then you really want to try and make sure that you get the support you need to make it as good as it can be.
Yes. Once you're making money
Then,
from it,
yeah, find the budget and
invest.
yeah, invest in it. It is an investment. It's, don't look at it as a cost. It's an investment.
Hi, and welcome to our very first episode of our new interview series, Tech Talk. My name is Ruth Ann Samuels, the Business Development and Project Management Associate here at Niritech Digital Services, and I'm very excited about this new series. So what is Tech Talk? Here at Niritech Digital Services, we are striving to change the lives of others around us through the use of technology. Tech Talk will feature interviews with industry experts that will provide valuable information geared towards enhancing your organization's digital transformation. We really hope that you gain valuable information from this series to help your business. Subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell below to ensure that you never miss an episode. In this increasingly digital era, we believe that having a website is essential for business success. Here at Niritech Digital Services, we offer website development services for individuals and businesses. One technology that we highly recommend for building websites is WordPress. And today, we're going to discuss if WordPress is a good fit for your business or your brand. On today's episode, we have a very special guest who's ready and excited to share with us. I am pleased to introduce Miss Bianca Welds, the Digital Innovation Manager for the Victoria Mutual Group. Bianca Welds is a technology professional with a passion for tech innovation and entrepreneurial thinking with the heart of a creative. She has worked in the public and private sector in business, arts, and technology. She has brought a background working with startups and entrepreneurs in technology and the creative industries, to her current focus on corporate innovation as the Digital Innovation Manager of the Victoria Mutual Group. All right, good afternoon, Bianca. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating in our first episode of our new Tech Talk series. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me. Very good to be here. Happy to support Niritech.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's jump right in. So, Bianca, you have an impressive resume as it relates to your work in the field of technology. Could you tell us about what motivated you to pursue a career in this field?
So that's actually a funny question because I was not motivated to pursue technology originally.
Wow.
I did study computer studies when I was in high school at O levels.
Okay.
And so I'd been exposed to technology, but I really had not considered it as a career.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went to UE to study, that was my intention, was to study actuarial science.
Wow, math.
Yes, I was a math head at the time, but I had actually gotten a B in A-level math,
Okay.
and they wouldn't accept me into the program. And so I used my big brain, and I noticed that there was a computer studies program that had the same first year courses as the actuarial science program. So my logic was I would do that program and then switch in second year because
Yes.
I would, I'd have straight A's and they'd have to accept me. And by the end of my first year, I actually hated math. I decided I was not taking another math course. And so I stuck with computer science.
Yes.
And I came out with a degree in it. And
Wow.
so I really can't say I was motivated. It really just was sort of the luck of the draw. That's where I ended up.
Yes.
But I did enjoy it while I was studying it. So it's not like I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely might have done things a little differently if I had known this was where I was going to end up. Maybe I would have actually done it at A levels. Maybe I'd have, sort of focused more on it earlier. But since then, I have worked in the field in a variety of capacities over the last couple of decades, and it's been an interesting journey. So
Yes, that sounds like a very interesting journey. So you said something about math. I believe we share the same sentiments. But I mean, in computer science, didn't you have to do a lot of math as well?
there is math, but it was not as abstract as the math that I was being asked to do.
Mhm.
So I knew pure mathematics was not for me.
Okay, and you found the love for technology.
Yes.
Okay,
And
all right.
for me, programming, which is what I was largely focused on in the early part of my career, was very similar to, well, I mean, to math, yes, but also foreign languages, which I also enjoyed, music, which I also enjoyed. So I saw a lot, my brain sees a lot of similarities there. So it was something that I did enjoy very much.
Yes, that's great. I believe they're very closely connected fields.
They are.
Yes. All
They
right.
are.
So, Bianca, you have been a part of the team leading digital transformation at Victoria Mutual for approximately 3 years. So, could you elaborate a little bit about your role, your work there, your experience?
So it is, yes, it has been just over 3 years now. And this is it's interesting because it's not a pure technology role that I have. I'm actually in innovation. So it's a mix between technology and business and sort of some amount of entrepreneurship, which is how I got into that space because I was working with startups and entrepreneurs before coming to Victoria Mutual. But our digital transformation team is working on a variety of things, several of which I can't mention. But overall, what we're trying to do is to make Victoria Mutual into what we're calling a modern mutual, an organization that is truly digital.
Yes.
And it is a journey. It's not something we can do overnight. Victoria Mutual is 142,
Wow.
43 years this year.
Yes.
So it is a well-established institution. Um, so the experience has been interesting. It's
Yes.
very different to working with startups and entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Working in that kind of corporate environment comes with its own challenges and its own rewards. Um, Challenges being, there are cultural differences.
Yes.
An organization like that is not as accustomed to working in as agile a way.
Mhm.
The flexibility is a little more limited. But at the same time, when you work with an organization like that, there are resources you wouldn't necessarily have if you're working with a startup. So there
Yes,
are
that's
pluses
true.
and minuses, and it has definitely, again, I will say, it's been an interesting journey. But we have been, some of the stuff that that team has been pushing for is starting to come to fruition now. So we're starting to
Yes.
see stuff coming out of Victoria Mutual, and working with teams across the organization. We recently, earlier this year, launched our new online banking, which was a
Wow.
big step for us.
Mhm.
We had online banking, but our new system was launched earlier this year. We have a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes as well, but more and more digital focused things are coming out of Victoria Mutual. So stay
That's
tuned.
great. That's great. I will stay tuned. So that initiative to transform the online banking system, that was a part of your department.
So my team is not primarily an implementation team.
Mhm.
We operate at a more strategic level. So the digital transformation team has oversight trying to pull together all of the things that are happening digitally across the organization so
Okay.
that they are moving us all in the same direction and not pulling us, in different ways. Um, my team that I lead does do some amount of implementation, but ours is more internally focused. So we do a lot of process automation, for example, but we also research emerging technologies. We also look at, potential new business models. So we have a very mixed focus.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a really interesting job.
It is. It's not the kind of thing anybody ever told me existed. So it's
Yes.
not something I ever thought I would end up doing. But it is an interesting space to be in, and
Mhm.
becoming more so, because more
Yes.
and more organizations in Jamaica are deliberately trying to be more innovative.
Yes.
And of course, digital is a big thrust for that. So
Mhm.
it's becoming a very interesting space to be in.
Yes, definitely. And especially during this time where everyone has to transition,
This
to the
year has been, yes. I mean, I think everybody's tired of hearing the word pivot, but there really is no other way to describe what organizations have been forced to do,
Yes, definitely.
because pretty much whatever industry you are in, you've been affected in some way. Some industries, of course, have fared better than others,
Hmm.
um, but it it definitely has brought challenges and pushed. I mean, it's pushed
Yes.
organizations into doing things that many times they thought they couldn't do,
Hmm.
and they delayed doing or resisted doing, and
Yes.
now it's just becoming part of how we all work.
Yeah.
So
It's pushing them to be innovative.
it is.
Yes. All right. Thank you. So I believe I can call you a WordPress advocate based on the work that you've done with WordPress, both internationally and locally. So, could you elaborate on your work and the impact created as a result?
So my WordPress journey started in 2005. I was a blogger. I started a personal blog, and I started running it on WordPress. And a big part of that for me was because I was coming from a technical background. And the way I like to say it is, I wanted the ability to mess up my site myself. And so I didn't want a hosted service. I wanted something that I could go and tinker and play with. And at the time, WordPress was the best option for that. And I was doing a lot of that for years. And then I started working with other people. I was helping first friends and then eventually clients create sites, migrate from other platforms, stuff like that, run some of their sites. And I did that for a while. I actually no longer do that. So I don't actively work with the WordPress platform myself. I still use it to maintain my personal sites.
Mhm.
But for the last, I would say maybe 4 or 5 years, my focus has been more on community. And so a few years ago, I started speaking at some of the international WordPress events called WordCamps.
Wow. Okay.
And so I spoke in Miami, I spoke in Ottawa, I spoke in Nashville at WordCamp US. Um, and so I met a lot of international WordPressers. And one of the things that kept striking me was how how deep the community ran. You know, they all were coming from spaces where their city had a meetup, they had a WordPress group, they had a community that was sharing and doing things. And everybody kept going, so is there a WordPress community in Jamaica? And I'm like, well, I mean, there's an informal community in that there are a lot of people using WordPress, but there's no formal community. And so they encouraged me to start it. And I did that in I originally set it up in 2016 and didn't do much about it. And then at the end of 2017, I actually started. And so we've been running for 3 years now, our Kingston WordPress group. This year has been, of course, interesting because we've gone completely virtual, and
Yes.
we're loosely calling ourselves, WordPress Jamaica, just because as we're virtual, it's now easier for people all across the island to actually join us.
Join. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so it's been about 3 years, and it's been interesting seeing the, the connections that are forming. There are collaborations that are forming. We have, people who come to us not really knowing a lot about WordPress, but getting a lot of information, because we have people who have worked with WordPress for many, many years, not just myself. We have people who are very technically skilled in WordPress. We have
Yes.
plugin developers and designers.
Wow.
We have people who are, very skilled at writing copy for websites. And so people who didn't know much about WordPress, but wanted to learn, have been able to learn a lot. Um, and we have job opportunities coming through the community. People reach out
Wow.
wanting to hire WordPress developers, looking for, contract um, team members for projects. So the community is growing, and moving into next year, we're actually going to put a lot more effort into actively growing the community even larger than it is, and trying
Yes.
to amplify the impact that we can have.
Yes, that sounds like, well, I'm glad that you took the initiative to start the WordPress community. It sounds really interesting. So, is it a case that anyone can join this community, or how does that work in terms
Yeah.
of who can be a
So
part of the
we
community?
are we are completely open.
Okay.
So it's anybody who loves and or uses WordPress.
Okay.
Um, Once you have an interest, you're welcome to join us.
Mm-hmm.
Our default place is on meetup.com. That's where most WordPress meetup groups are hosted. So you can join us. Just look for Kingston WordPress and join us there, and you can get notified of our next events.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a Slack group that we've started, and so
Slack.
yes, we can invite you to Slack, which is more for our sort of ongoing discussions outside
Mm-hmm.
of our monthly events. We have ongoing discussions in Slack. So it makes it a little easier for people to get help if they have questions, or to talk about things relating to WordPress or affecting their work with WordPress. But we're completely open to anybody who's interested.
Okay, that's great. All right. So if I have a friend who is interested in joining, I can just refer them to you. All right.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. So some facts. So WordPress is used by more than 60 million websites worldwide, including
Yeah.
33.6 of the top 10 million websites as of April 2019. And even though WordPress is so popular, I know a lot of persons know WordPress, there are still some persons who are not aware of the platform. So let me just jump right in. What is WordPress? For those who may be wondering, what is WordPress?
WordPress is a platform for creating websites. Like at its most basic, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it falls into that space of what we call content management systems, which allow you to some extent, kind of separate the look of your, the look and the functionality of your website from the content that's on it. And so it not only allows you to create your website, but you can also then more easily manage the content. It's started off as a blogging platform, but it has grown way beyond that
Yeah.
and is used for, all sorts of websites now, business websites, applications, and there's a lot of more technical stuff happening
Yes.
with the way the platform is growing.
Mm-hmm.
But at its most basic, for beginners, that's what WordPress is.
Yes. I believe a lot of bloggers turn to WordPress because many
Yeah.
persons that I see on Instagram, usually if they're a blogger or a writer and I click on the link, it's usually developed by WordPress. So
Yeah,
I think a lot of bloggers use WordPress.
they do. But
Yes.
there are
Definitely.
also a lot of business and organizational websites in
Mhm.
Jamaica locally
Yes.
that are based on WordPress that people don't even realize. So,
Yeah, that's true. So, WordPress is one of the solutions that we recommend to our clients as it relates to developing a content managed website, as management website, as you said before. How effective is WordPress for businesses, and what features do you believe gives it a competitive advantage?
so WordPress works very well for business websites. Um, where it where it shines is in its flexibility. And so WordPress is incredibly flexible. The way it has been built, functionality can be added through plugins to do just about anything. which is not to say that WordPress is the perfect solution for every kind of website. But for most businesses, WordPress will work really, really well. It's also easier to use than some other content management systems. So ease of use continues to be a big focus of the teams behind the WordPress releases. And so in terms of non-technical business users being able to manage the content on their website, WordPress can be really good for that.
Yes.
It's also fairly reliable and efficient because WordPress is an open source platform. As several of the content management systems are now, what that means is instead of one tiny team, so for example, if Niritech built their own custom content management system, which a lot of website development agencies in Jamaica used to do.
Yes.
That system is only as effective as the 3 or 4 people that worked on the website, right? And it's only going to be updated by those 3 or 4 people that work on the website. Because WordPress is open source, it means that there are hundreds and thousands of people who are working behind the scenes to improve the code, to strengthen the platform, to develop new features, to identify bugs. So what you end up with is a system that is infinitely more effective than a custom built system in many cases.
Yes.
If you have a totally unique problem trying to solve, then custom may be best for you. But for most businesses, WordPress is going to work really, really well because of that.
There's a question I wanted to ask you. You said something about businesses, about WordPress being very good for businesses who don't really need to, go into the custom built solution right away. I wanted to ask, so it's good for entrepreneurs, persons who are just starting out, and the creatives, really. It's ideal for that, or is it okay for everyone?
I wouldn't say ideal. It works really well for a lot of general purposes.
Okay.
Right? Because we can also start to get into hosted WordPress versus self-hosted WordPress.
Yes.
Which also gets us into some other aspects of how the platform works. But it does work very well for creatives and entrepreneurs, often because they're starting out with a fairly low budget. And you can get a WordPress site up and running on a fairly low budget.
Yes.
The more advanced functionality that you need, the more likely you are to need paid services or paid plugins to help make that possible. But you can get a lot done with the free platform and the free plugins.
Okay.
So it does work very well at that end of the scale for creatives and entrepreneurs who are just starting out. But it also can work really well for businesses because over the years, as WordPress has evolved from just blogging, so it used to just kind of manage blog content.
Yes.
There has been a lot of functionality added both in the native system as well as through plugins to enable WordPress websites to manage all sorts of content. And so you will see websites, with a lot of e-commerce websites, for example. So e-commerce, wasn't really around for WordPress when it started, but that has become a really big thing, to the point where, the largest e-commerce plugin ended up being sort of absorbed into WordPress. So
what plugin is that?
That's WooCommerce.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. So WordPress does work really well for a wide variety of cases.
Yes, I believe that. So thank you, Bianca, for highlighting how effective WordPress can be for businesses, and for highlighting even the payment, the e-commerce integration that WordPress now allows. So hackers are increasingly releasing malware onto the internet that searches for web connected devices that may have non-existent or poor security measures, which leads me to my next question on security. How secure is WordPress, and what features can you implement in your website to ensure that the data is not compromised?
Right. So because WordPress is as popular as it is now, it does make it a frequent target. And so there are hackers that target purely poorly secured WordPress websites. But no content management system is 100% secure, right?
Yes.
By virtue of the open source nature of it, WordPress in itself is fairly secure in that vulnerabilities in WordPress websites are not usually built into the core code.
Okay.
But what we see is that vulnerabilities are introduced into WordPress websites when best practices aren't followed.
Yes.
Right. And so it's things like keeping your plugins and themes updated, using plugins and themes that are regularly updated. So you don't have a plugin that was last updated 5 years ago, because it may not have been adequately secured for the current technology, right? It's making sure you're installing plugins from reputable sources, reputable developers, so that the plugin itself does not have malware injected into it. It's password management. I mean, that's a constant challenge on the internet for all websites, regardless
Definitely.
of platform, is users use weak passwords. And, that makes it really easy for hackers to get into our website. So it's about using strong passwords, where possible, if you can, use two-factor authentication.
Yes.
It's things like changing the default admin name.
Wow. Yes.
WordPress, a lot of people leave it as
admin.
And so all
Yes.
the hacker has to do is figure out the password.
Yes.
And if they haven't used a strong password, then they're in two shakes. But it's things like also adding security software, like adding a firewall to your website. There are firewall plugins. You can use, I mean, there really are all sorts of things that you can do. But it's things like the host, where your website is hosted on. Is that a secure hosting platform?
Yes.
Do you have old users who no longer need to have access to your website?
Yeah.
But they have admin access because one time 7 years ago they needed access.
Yes.
So there are a lot of best practices that people can implement to secure their websites. And if you have a WordPress website and you are not
tech savvy
enough to do it, then get help.
Yes.
Find a WordPress company, agency, developer who can help you secure your website. But at the bare minimum, there are security plugins that will take you through a lot of the basic best practices. They will make sure your username, they'll flag things like that, like your username, like your passwords, the login URL where you go to log into your website. They'll make sure that you change that. So at the very least, install one of those security plugins that will help you cover some of the basics.
Yes. Well, as you said, if you're not tech savvy, you should get help, because I know a lot of persons try to, use WordPress on their own, but they would not really know about all of these security measures that they need to put in place. Yes. And I'm not sure if I know that persons can set up a WordPress website on their own. Does WordPress give advice or anything like that as it relates to setting it up on your own, or offer some guidance?
There is some guidance, but it is fairly basic. And so it's fine for just getting started, but definitely, especially if you're going to be running your business website on WordPress, then you're going to want to go further than that. And whether that is by doing research on your own or getting some outside help, then yeah, you need to go deeper with the security.
All right. Thank you, Bianca. A lot of creators and amateurs use WordPress daily. And we just spoke about how if you're not tech savvy, rather, you should really get help. So how important is it to get a software development agency to help you on your journey of, developing a content managed website?
So the usual challenge there for entrepreneurs and creatives, which I mentioned before, is usually budget.
Okay.
Right? Very often they don't have the budget to hire an agency or even a freelance developer. And so very often they are starting out on their own. But as I mentioned, particularly if you are running a business, if it's just a personal website and you don't mind occasionally having issues, then that's fine. But if you are planning to run a business on your WordPress website, if that is going to be your means of earning an income or promoting yourself so you can earn an income, then you definitely want to make sure that your site is built as well as it can be, is designed as well as it can be,
Yes.
is managed as well as it can be, is secured as well as it can be.
Yes, definitely.
And so, at that point, that's when once you intend for your website to contribute to your income earning potential, whether you're an individual or a business, then you really want to try and make sure that you get the support you need to make it as good as it can be. Okay. Because there is a potential for a lot of money lost if your website is not secured, if it's poorly designed, if it's poorly built. Yes. If people load your site and it takes 5 minutes for the homepage to come up, then nobody's going to stay and you've lost customers or an audience. So once it is relevant to your revenue.
Yes. Once you're making money from it.
Yeah, find the budget.
Invest.
Invest in it. It is an investment. It's, don't look at it as a cost. It's an investment because a good website can make you way more than it costs to get it set up and managed.
Definitely. Thank you, Bianca, for joining us on our Tech Talk episode for today. I'm sorry I have to wrap up. I have less than a minute, but I'm sure that our audience gained valuable insights on how WordPress is good for businesses. Is there any information that you'd like to share for those who'd like to connect with you or join the WordPress community?
Well, just as a reminder, I mentioned it before, but you can find us on meetup.com at Kingston WordPress, or when we do have events in your WordPress admin dashboard, or events actually show up there. So you can keep an eye out for events near you and you'll see our next event happening.
Thank you so much, Bianca. And I hope that you have a great rest of the day. Thank you for joining us. But we're so delighted that you're able to join us today. It was very inspiring and your work is very inspiring. So thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thanks for having us. Thanks for being here.
Sure.
All right. WordPress is one of the world's leading content management systems. Here at Niritech Digital Services, we offer website design and implementation services. We have developed 4 website packages that will suit your business needs. To learn more about these packages, click on the link in the description below so you can download and review the packages at your own convenience. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. And follow us at We Are Niritech on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.